All right, guys, we're back again. Dynamic Man Podcast, episode 57. It's good to see you guys. I think we're gonna have a short one today. We'll see. I'm already a little bit late. I gotta be honest, guys. I'm just exhausted. That's the reason I'm late. That is actually the reason I'm late. I'm just out. You get like a really heavy workout in, and you just come back home and you're just moving a little bit slower. That's all it is right now. So I'm just moving a little bit slower. I lay down in my bed. I had 10 minutes to spare till the show, and I'm moving slow. It's like, oh crap, it's already 10 minutes late. What's wrong with me? Anyway, I hope you forgive me as usual. It's uh, it's absolutely not my strongest suit, punctuality here. Okay, today I want to talk about. Let me just give this a little. Let me just give this a little promotion. All right. So today I want to do a little bit of a crossover. So a lot of you guys know I have another channel now. It used to be this past year I had done it on this channel too. I'm gonna remove these videos, by the way. But I have this show, Dynamic Man Podcast. We talk about dating relationships, and I also have COVID Cabal, which is my schizo political show. And I had them both on this channel. We've just recently moved that to a different channel. So once I have the current batch of videos on this channel from COVID Cabal uploaded to the other channel, I'm gonna pull those from this channel. That way we're just sticking the dating relationship content here. The algorithm will know where to send people for what kind of stuff. But I wanted to talk a little bit. This is a little bit of a crossover show. Not because I'm going to be getting into politics or anything like that. Kova Cabal is its own entity. You do not see me with a glass of wine, right? But I think that the events of recent days have shown us some stuff that can be very, very instructive when it comes to women. So this guy Alex Preddy, right? Some communist gets shot trying to go after police. We got video of him today being a douchebag, spitting on police, trying to spit on ICE agents, kicking in taillights, whatever. Gun goes off. I don't know what I think he reached for it. That's what I see. It doesn't matter whether the gun went off, whether it was because of like a messed up firing mechanism in the gun. So it's a Sig Sauer, so type of gun that he was using, from what I understand, has safety issues. So either it was a cruel twist of fate or it was justified. Whatever. Again, not the point of the channel to talk about the political aspect of these things. But what is interesting is you saw all these commentators lose their minds, and I think a lot of them are bad faith actors. Okay, I talk about that on COVID Cabal. I diagnosed this, but a lot of people, responded the way they did with like a lot of panic and, oh, we can't be doing this, and we can't be, this is a bad thing. This is terrible optics. Trump's going to pull back. Trump's going to do this. Even if you put aside the fact that maybe some of these people were not bad actors, what it showed was a lack of tension control, frame control, right? Now, I think that the left is having a hard time accepting that a lot of people don't give a fuck about their problems, don't give a fuck about their movement. They hate them. They hate them, or they pity them. They're tired of them regardless, okay? But the frame control aspect of this is very interesting to me, because what is the reason? How do you gain political power? You gain political power ultimately by controlling the frame. Politics is a battle of frames. Everything is a battle of frames. That's what it is. Because a frame is the set of assumptions that people operate on that are true, right? So if you control the frame, you have moral legitimacy, and your moral legitimacy is based on the combination of say the masculine element, which is it correct, and the feminine element, which is say does it is it nice? Okay. So if you have a feminized moral framework, the feminine enforces frames through guilt. The masculine enforces frames through truth or force, maybe let's say in the lower level, right? So let's say the feminine on the higher level enforces it through love, the masculine through truth. The masculine on the lower level enforces it through physical force, and the feminine through guilt. Okay? Higher resolution, lower resolution. So if you're operating in truth and love, you're operating in a very integrated, balanced way. But what we've seen is this major slide culturally for a very long time, and that slide is entirely due to the fact that the right had lost frame control. And you still see it. These last little whimpers of it right now, when you see people like, oh, well, Trump, I don't know about this, if he can do this, or, I don't feel comfortable with that. I don't feel immediately jumping to self-accuse. I'm the bad person. That shows a framing issue. And this is why, people on the right, we started calling these people cuckservatives, right? Because they like to watch their own party, their own constituents get fucked. That's what we call them, cuckservatives. It's an old school term now. I've been around for a while. It's an old school term. But cuckservative comes from cuck, right? It comes from guys who like to see other men fuck their women. But I want to say something more than that, because a cuck is not just somebody who likes to see another man fuck his woman. Okay? It's all degenerate behavior. But there's an iteration, and you can call him a cuck. I don't think it's wrong to call him a cuck. But if you want to be precise here, right? Some guys are just really into group sex activities, and it's like they might think it's hot, but they're not they don't get off on humiliation. That's what I'm trying to say here. The thing that I think really distinguishes a cuck is a cuck. It's not like he's just super sexually open where it's like, yeah, fuck my wife, whatever. I'm gonna fuck that other woman. A cuck wants to be humiliated. A cuck wants to see the other guy dominate his wife, and he's the guy who watches. He's the spectator. He's helpless. Okay? A cuck is the epitome of no frame. A cuck is the epitome of I have no value. Let's talk about a major cuck we see today, Piers Morgan. I got to bring this up actually. I got to show this shit. How do I someone must have sent this to me. I got a bunch of people saying this to me. I got to hold on a second. Cuz I got to share this. It's just too good. It's too good cuz it's like too insane. What happened to Big Boy? Oh, all right, I got it. I'm going to bring it up. I want to bring it up. If I don't bring it up, I'm not doing justice to it. So I got to bring it up. All right. We had talked about, I don't know if I talked about it on the show or if I just talked about it on X. But like probably the big cuck that we see out there today is Piers Morgan. His wife literally is like posting about with like blatant insinuation that she's banging other guys and that she hates her husband. Now look at this. Piers Morgan, biggest talk show host in the entire United Kingdom. He breaks his hip. Look at this cunt. I signed up to In Sickness and in Health, but it's almost 2 weeks since he broke his hip, and my patience with my patient is wearing thin. She's like the most narcissistic person in the world. And you have to ask yourself, how could anybody possibly be with her? And so I hear some people are like, oh, I feel so bad for Piers. Why do you feel bad for Piers? This is a sexual fetish. Promise you it's a sexual fetish. I promise you Piers Morgan gets off on being humiliated. Absolutely. Because he has this whole act that he plays all day long where he acts like he's better than other people and he condescends to them. But deep down, he knows that he doesn't, he's a fraud, right? His confidence is not genuine. And so obviously he likes to be humiliated. Because any man who had actual confidence would never tolerate 1% of the stuff that this woman does to him. Not even a regular guy would tolerate 10% of what this woman does to him. Maybe that's not fair, but let's say half of what she does to him. A lot of guys would tolerate everything except the banging, her sleeping with other guys. But you're seeing this stuff all the time, right? Where am I trying to go with this? I'm trying to say is that how did we get to this point where the tides have turned? How did we get to this point where, I saw this video, this leftist guy, and he was like complaining. He's like, nobody cares. Everybody's just out. Alex Preddy was just killed and nobody cares. They're just in restaurants, they're eating, and and he's like all freaked out. But the thing is, like, no one cares because you guys lost the frame. You lost the frame. Nobody, you're talking and you're demanding this and that, but nobody wants to listen to you anymore. But the only reason nobody wants to listen is because other people stood up and said, you're wrong, and I don't give a fuck what you call me. You notice like all these terms like racist, sexist, homophobic, people just don't give a fuck anymore. Don't give a fuck about it. Why should they care? They're terms of control. But the bigger point here is that the frame, there was a frame push to say, if you say these things, you're bad. And enough individuals caved. It's a really good question. How'd they lose the frame? They used the frame. They lost the frame by having their cultural mouthpieces in place so that they could make the collective think a certain way. So things that had been normal for a long time, you play the long game of getting your people into into positions of cultural influence and in media, in education, in entertainment, right? And then you have those people all push the new, and you may have some incident that they use to then create a narrative, right? And then you might look at the narrative and say, that's fucking stupid. But if enough people think that the narrative isn't stupid, or rather, if there's enough people who are convinced, and this is especially women, because women, and I want to make it clear, this is not like trashing women. Women maintain social consensus. They can maintain a very good social consensus, or they can maintain a very bad one. The problem is that there was such a massive multi-vector assault on the female mind. And then, so when you make women freely give out sex, and then the men rather than get sex from being men in protecting women, providing for them, committing to them, but women are giving them sex. This is feminism, right? Women give them sex for making them feel a certain way, or because the women want to, right? Well, then the men are now incentivized to cater to the women's behavior to get sex rather than to do higher order things. This is a really interesting thing to think about. How much of the entire social order falling apart has to do with women being free to have sex? Not because per se, and this is where I might part from others, because it's a particular moral failing on the part of women, but because it actually creates a massive moral failing on the part of men, because the men no longer feel incentivized to create structures to get women. So I don't have to explain the rest. You can see how it starts to cascade from there. Yeah, this is the unlock. So, and I think the reframe is that, women not being promiscuous, it's not. I don't think it's constructive to be blaming women for it. I don't think it's constructive. I think it's more important to view it in the grand scheme of things, like this has been bad for everyone. But can we put that genie back in the bottle, or can we just mitigate the negatives from it? I don't know. I mean, I'm not out there. I'm not, you guys know very well, I'm not one of these neo-trad people who's out. I was just today, like, I find prudes. I'm all about waiting. I think that's great. But I'm not about waiting because you're prude. I'm about waiting because you have discipline. I'm not about waiting because you're neurotic. These days, when you get above 25, it gets to be more and more neurotic. And you can pick your degree of neuroticism. But yeah, I don't know if we're going to get back to that. My guess is that we're not going to go back to it. But we're not going to have as much casual sex as we do either. My guess is that we are entering into much more of a conservative era. No doubt. Next 40 years going to be very conservative, 50 easy. But it's going to be a relative thing where I think casual sex is going to be severely downplayed. But there's going to be a lot of individual freedom, but I think casual sex is going to lose a lot of its luster. But I don't know that. And I do think people are going to get married earlier, but you're not going to go back to what you had 100 years ago. Just don't really see that. But yeah. So, okay. So let's take it back here, this whole frame control thing. So we lost the frame from that initial fall where men started to orient themselves towards what women wanted to get laid by the women. You started to have this integrity cascade. And with that weakness, we lost the frame. We got the frame back because of 10 years of fucking cultural trench fighting. Believe me, I've been in it. With the biggest fucking tension frame control master in the world, Donald Trump, at the fore of it. Because I remember when I first watched that guy, that's why I supported him. I mean, I agree with his policies. I didn't like the persona when I thought of it as like a celebrity thing. But when I saw people who had no integrity trying to manipulate him and him being unable to be manipulated, him saying, "I don't care." That's when I love the man. That's when I look to him as an inspiration. 'Cause I'm like, "Man, I'm not that fucking strong. I'm afraid." I've started to become a little bit afraid to say what I think. I lost some of my friends. I lost 80% of them that first election. But I kept my integrity. Now the thing is, when you have a manipulated moral consensus based on, what everyone thinks everybody else should, you know, oh, you it's enforced by lower iterations of women, of female consciousness, right? So there's no truth involved with it. It's not about truth. It's about you're not anti being nice, are you? Oh, I guess you're terrible. You don't want to get rejected from society. That's what happened. That was the threat that they had. So you had to get to the point where you said, I don't care what you have. I'm not going to let you threaten and intimidate me. Now, that's easy to say. In some situations, it's just social pressure, but people weren't getting jobs. It put me in prison. Okay. Specific circumstance. The point is, even as they were doing all this, attempts to control how people thought, how people acted, what they said, what happened eventually is that people got fed up with them because it's not like they were trying to regulate. You can't say these mean things about gay people, right? Let's just use them as an example. Not that like I even care about, I'm trying to pick on gay people, but like you can't say anything mean about them. Okay. But then they were excusing a lot of really terrible behavior from their own side. There was no internal policing. So there started to become a big integrity gap. I always tell guys when it comes to frame, the easiest way to hold frame is not to be like, I'm going to get what I want. Most guys who struggle with frame because they have associated getting what, like they've associated being respected with being controlling. Okay. They actually are, I say they're nice guys. They actually are good guys at heart, most of them. The problem is they've made an intellectual connection between if I get what I want, that means I've hurt somebody else. That's a false assumption, but that's the program in their head. So if you say, no, the thing is, you do have to, like, the problem is that you're not getting what you want. Most of those guys are not going to resonate with that. They're going to just say, well, I'd rather not get what I want than be a bad person. So what you actually have to do is you have to reframe for them, right? What a good person actually means. And so first off, that's, if you actually care about other people, you're going to tell them the truth. But that's the big thing, right? It's not about relative power. It's not about trying to get into a power struggle and winning the power struggle. That's exhausting and it's low rewards. It's low consciousness. If you align yourself with truth, though, you're going to find that you have the backing of God. I'm not trying to beat around the bush with this. When you are anchored into the truth in a situation as objectively as possible, right? You're anchored into the truth. You are going to have stronger frame. Because you're going to feel more integrity and more coherence. The only reason I was able, and I've talked about this a little bit, and it'll be in my book when my book comes out. Coming out very beginning of July, like July 2nd is what we're thinking right now. One of the things I talk about, I go into it in a lot of detail in module 5 of the masterclass in one of the videos. But what made it easier for me to go through all the political persecution I went through enormous amounts of pressure. But what made it easier for me to go through was knowing that I was in the right. It was knowing that they were wrong. They never broke my frame. Never the entire time. That's why I went to trial. I spent like $300,000 because if I was going to plead, I was not going to plead to something I didn't do. So I'm not saying that, you know, you got to do something like that, but I want you to think about this. When you look at the news, when you look at what's going on, when you look at the shifting tides in society, these are all lessons to incorporate. We are winning because we're not letting ourselves lose the frame anymore. And so whenever people freak out and when they fall for some moral gaslighting the left creates, they're just a cuck. It's what you need to understand. They have a very weak frame. And I think it's interesting that most of these people are comedians. Maybe that's a story for another time, but really interesting how the comedians seem to be the biggest individuals who seem to like to take it over, seem to like to bend over and take it up the ass. That seems to be the norm if you're a comedian these days. It's really funny, huh? I'm just making a joke. I'm not gonna get riled up. That's why I moved this stuff off the COVID Cabal channel. Get a little too racy here. So I think you guys get it. Okay. We will hold the frame and we will dominate culture so long as we keep our integrity. And if we ever move past that, if we ever start to seek power for power's own sake rather than power that's grounded in truth, we are going to lose power eventually. That'll be the seeds of our destruction. That's the hubris, right? But the same thing applies in a relationship with a woman. You will be the leader that a woman, a good faith woman, you're going to push away the bad faith woman with this behavior, but the good faith women will follow you so long as you maintain your integrity. When you lose it, it's better to apologize when you're wrong. Because if you try to say, no, I wasn't wrong, she's going to lose respect for you. You're going to lose frame. You're going to try tactically to control frame. You're going to lose it big picture. You always got to keep your eye on the ball. Align yourself with truth. That means when you call out her behavior, it lands more because you've already called out your objective. Okay? All right, guys. No Dynamic Man tomorrow. I have a conflict, but we have COVID Cabal Sunday, 2 p.m. I will see you guys there on the channel. It's COVID Cabal. Okay? So it's right. Just put COVID Cabal in here. You'll see me on X. Subscribe to the channel. And by the way, this video, like and subscribe, comment on the main video if you liked it. I appreciate you guys. Appreciate you stopping in. And I will see you on the Dynamic Man podcast on Monday. Take care. Enjoy your weekend.